everyone. Welcome to Grounded with John Tester and Maritza Giorgio. How you doing, Senator?
Really good. It rained about half an inch yesterday and
What?
sun shining today. Yeah, it's great. And with the rain that we had last week, it rains a half an inch. It looks like it rained an inch and a half. And it's just things are good.
So you finally got the rain you were looking for.
Yeah, but this is just the beginning of many more rains that we need to have to be able to get to a point where we're going to have to harvest a crop and get it to the bin. But such is the life of a farmer. So that's it.
Have you seen your peas start to come up? Did it
Oh,
work?
the peas were up. The problem was it was so hot around Memorial Day that they took it in the shorts, and a lot of them
Ah,
cashed in their chips, but it's fine. I mean, look, we weren't gonna have anything 2 weeks ago, and now it looks like we might have a harvest, so that's good. We're gonna cut some hay, so that's good.
woo-wee. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we have for you today a conversation that we actually recorded yesterday, super, super early in the morning, with Maya Wiley, who's the president and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. It's the country's oldest and longest civil rights coalition. And we just talk a lot about what we're seeing with this administration, the attacks on the Southern Poverty Law Center, this indictment against that group, and just overall, all of the attacks on civil rights that we've seen.
Yeah, not good, it's, whether it's the Supreme Court and on the Voting Rights Act or
Mm.
whether it's what the president has done, you're probably gonna get into here shortly on, immigrants with ICE and, you know, uh, detaining people who shouldn't be detained, but since they have a certain color or talk a certain way,
Yeah.
they end up getting detained. It's a unfortunate situation, but it's where we are. You know, coming up on a year and a half. Soon will be 2 years into this administration, and the damage that has been done. The next president's going to have a hell of a lot of work to do, assuming that we have a free and fair election and have a next president.
Well, it's a really great conversation. We went over time because we always seem to do that. but but that's okay. It's a good conversation. We'll play it here for you in a little bit. But should we do some headlines?
Yeah,
All right, let's start. All right, did you see this clip of the president that's going around?
I got a notion I'm going to see it in a minute. Do you have it?
Hey, you're catching on to this thing we do here.
Sure.
Okay, so we had some bad inflation numbers come out yesterday. The consumer price index rose again. It put the annual inflation rate at 4.2%. Okay. So I want to play for you what the president said when he was asked about this in the Oval Office.
Mr. President, about the latest inflation number which came out this morning. Could that be a
No, I love it.
correct?
The numbers look great.
Try and
You know what I
hold
really love?
5%.
I love the inflation. You know why?
So,
Because as soon as this war is over, I can say it now. Something you didn't know. Do you know we've been taking out millions of barrels of oil? Nobody knows it. You know who doesn't know about it? Iran until right now. And I said, the bad part is the stock market will go down by a lot based on predictions of experts, like 25%. And it was worth it. To me, it was worth it not to have a nuclear weapon. And the other thing is that oil would go to $250 a barrel. It's at 85.
Can you tell
inflation that comes down between
Oh,
now.
when the war is over,
Yes.
it's coming down.
Are you concerned, Mr. President, about
Okay, so I love it. I love the numbers. I
You
love
know,
the inflation.
it may be true that Iran doesn't know that there's millions of barrels of oil going through the Strait of Hormuz, but you know who else doesn't know that? The oil companies don't know that because the price at the pump continues to be uh, through the roof, and we will see. I hope this war gets over with. I wish we never got into it to begin with because we spent hundreds of billions of dollars on this bad boy. But in the end, yeah, oil hopefully goes back to where it was before the president decided to bomb Iran.
I think that's the whole thing here is he's like, "Oh yeah, I love it because it's going to come down." Like so cavalier and also just like he had nothing to do with starting the war in Iran. Like it's totally out of his hands.
Yeah, and remember that the president's comments right before, when they were having negotiations, right before, was that he had totally decimated their nuclear
Mhm.
program.
Yeah.
So it's You know, that's one thing. Here's the other thing. The inflation thing, I love inflation, it's great. Uh, if people think that the guy from New York City, and we'll get into the game here in a minute, but the guy from New York City is concerned about them, that statement says a bunch, you know? Inflation, I love inflation. Inflation just puts the boots to working people and people that are having trouble making ends meet. Just puts the boots to them. It's not good. And by the way, it's interesting because when there was inflation and Joe Biden was president, that was a huge issue during the campaign. It was just devastating. But now, since it happens because the president declares war on, no, I guess he didn't declare war because he attacks Iran. Now inflation is just fine. You know, I can tell you that I think he's losing his mind and he's saying stuff that he's thinking out loud now, which is pretty interesting. Pretty interesting.
Well, he always has kinda slipped that stuff through, but yeah, I mean, I can't imagine any of the Republicans on the Hill are excited that the president is saying, "I love the inflation." What it
Well,
just
it would look.
so removed.
It would be nice if they didn't confirm judges who are unfit to be on the court. It would be nice if they said, "Whoa, quit spending all this money because we're not getting any return on investment on it." They've got to stand up and be the Article One body. We've said it 100 times. We've said it once on this podcast. The Article One body that the Constitution says, and what that means is you got to work for the United States of America's people, not the White House.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to save a picture here. There we go. Oh, someone's in our comment saying, "Let's go. We have to make sure everyone signs on to the Montana plans. We've got 8 days." We're gonna talk
Amen.
about the Montana plan a little bit. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
talking about that tomorrow in
yeah, we
Bozeman.
are. We're going to be talking about it tomorrow in Bozeman. I can tell you that the signature collection is moving along, but we still need to remain diligent, getting as many signatures as possible on that. I think Jeff Mangan's done a masterful job, but we're not there yet, and hopefully we will be soon.
Hey, my pal Xander Schultz is in the comments saying on the war, it'd be different if we bought the cover story that this was averting nuclear war, but nobody does. So let's get into more on this war because the whole I love the inflation numbers and it's all going to come down when the war ends. Okay, okay, okay. So that might signal to you that the president wants the war to end. But this morning we woke up to a new True Social post from the president. And he said that the United States will be hitting Iran very hard tonight. At some point in the not too distant future, we will be taking Karg Island and other oil infrastructure points and assume total control of the oil and gas markets, much like we've done with Venezuela, blah, 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 blah. So he put that out this morning. Um, do you remember the president's nickname, Senator?
I remember President what?
His nickname? What people like
Uh,
to call him?
that's it's something to do with food that I like a lot.
Yeah, well, you said remember what it was?
Burrito?
No, a taco.
Oh, right on.
Trump always chickens out. That's what that stands for. Because here's what he posted just a short time ago on True Social. Based on the fact that discussions with the Islamic Republic of Iran have been brought to the highest level of Iranian leadership and approved, I have canceled the scheduled strikes and bombings against Iran this evening. So this morning, he's going to hit them hard. A few hours later, he's going to back off. But he did not say anything about backing off on Karg Island. And I want to play for you something that Senator Kennedy said to CNN this afternoon.
About the move on Cargyle, and I'm not saying the president's wrong, but this is how it started in Vietnam. Committing troops is it's very, very, very dramatic step. But it's very hard for me to say he shouldn't because I just don't have the intelligence, and the president hasn't articulated yet what his next move after we take the island.
Here's the deal. I'm gonna tell you. John Kennedy, the senator from from Louisiana, needs to get that intelligence. And part of the problem is the administration is not briefing Congress. Obviously, not the Democrats, and obviously not the Republicans either. This has always been done in the past. where if you were a sitting U.S. senator and you needed intelligence and information about what was going on so you can determine how we're going to spend money or policy that was going to be put forth, that you could get that information. And so I think his first instinct is correct. Boots on the ground is not exactly something that is going to end well. But on the other side of the coin, you can get that intel. You have to raise a little hell to get the intel. And with this group, you got to raise a lot of hell, but you can get the intel. You got to demand it. You might have to get 3 or 4 of the folks that are on your side of the aisle to go with you. And I know there's a lot of Democrats that'll go with you because they have confided that they can't get information, period, on much of anything, because this administration doesn't believe Congress should even have a role in any of this stuff. It should be top down entirely. And I don't say that because I don't particularly like the administration, which I don't, but the truth is that the Constitution is a well-written document and people ought to live up to it. And you can get that information if you want to get that information as a sitting US senator. Now, it's hard for me to get that information because I'm just a regular old person now, which is kind of cool. But the truth but the truth is that if you're a US senator or if you're a House member, you can get that information. And it may take some numbers to get it from these guys, but you can get the information. But you may be going against the president of the United States. And if you're a Republican, that's kind of been the kiss of death.
Yeah, and notice how he won't say,
But
"I'm not saying the president's wrong." I mean, they're very careful about saying that, and
well,
nobody's right all the time.
that's correct.
Except for
I've said
you.
that about both parties. They're never wrong all the time. They're never right all the time. That's why you need to have conversations and negotiations and ask tough questions that we used to have in the press, but not anymore, and get some answers. But look, he's in a tough position because in his first term, the very first thing he did is he ripped up an agreement that Barack Obama did called the JCPOA, and he called it just terrible and boatloads of money were going to Iran. Look, in that agreement, we had people on the ground in Iran making a determination that they weren't creating a nuclear weapon. Now, there's no eyes on the ground. There's no trust but verify. And he's in a tough situation because Iran understands that this is not a popular war in this country, and it never will be a popular war in this country. They also understand that this has driven costs of energy up, not only in the United States, but every country in the world. So we're not really looked at in a very high esteem right now. And now he's got a negotiated deal on a war that was totally optional because, as he has said, their nuclear facilities were totally decimated.
And reopening the strait, which was open before all of this.
Yeah, it
And
was open for all of this, but maybe that's why that all the presidents from Carter on didn't do what they did, what President Trump did, and maybe that's why when Lindsey Graham and Tom Cotton get up and say when they attack, "Oh, this is a great idea," don't hear much from them boys now.
mm, maybe they're at Disney World.
What's that?
Maybe they're at Disney World.
It could be. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
But knowing you, you would think about that,
I
because
would,
there were pictures. There were pictures. What was he carrying?
uh,
What does he have in
Prin
his hand?
Princess Ariel bubble wand.
It's a beautiful thing.
It really is. It really is. Okay, well, you talked about the Constitution. I
I
wanna
did.
show you another True Social post from the president today. He's really kind of got a wide range of things he's talking about today. Like most days, he put this out as we await a decision from the Supreme Court on birthright citizenship. This is after a lower court ruled that a Trump executive order was unconstitutional. That order would have barred birthright citizenship to kids born to parents here either illegally or here on temporary visas. So, as we wait for this high court decision, here's what the president said on Truth Social. He said, "The United States of America cannot live with the shackles of birthright citizenship. It is not economically or otherwise sustainable, and no other country in the world of consequence does it." I mean, this is I feel like this is a really slippery slope when the president um when he starts just trying to tell us what the Constitution is saying instead of letting the Supreme Court do it or legal scholars.
Yeah. The other question is was his wife a citizen when she had Barron? Somebody ought to check into that. I mean, who knows? Maybe Barron's bye bye.
Whoa! But Barron's dad is a citizen, so
Does that make a difference?
I think it does.
That really makes a difference?
I think it does.
Okay, well,
I don't
maybe.
know. I'm
Well,
pretty sure
you know,
because my brothers and sisters are citizens and their mom is not.
there's,
Are my half
but
brothers.
maybe this decision, they won't be anymore. Think about that. And you are the journalist, so we will yield. We will
Yeah,
yield.
like, here's my prediction. He's saying this right now about birthright citizenship with this tweet or this sorry, true social post and saying this is, this is not sustainable. Well, how long before he starts going after other parts of our constitution? Well, the First Amendment really isn't supposed to cover that kind of speech. The First Amendment really doesn't protect those kinds of journalists because 'cause they're not really journalists because 'cause they're fake news. I mean, I just that's my little red siren that goes off in my head.
Well, it isn't that there isn't a line of, that you can follow here. I mean, take John Cornyn, a guy who voted, I think, 99% of the time with the president, and he endorsed the other guy because that 1%'s a killer. It's the same thing on all the other stuff. There's 1% in the First Amendment, 1%, and then pretty soon 5%, and pretty soon you got nothing because, uh, they haven't exactly been following the Constitution so far. So, it's unfortunate we're in a situation where the president of the United States, who called Joe Biden Sleepy Joe, now falls asleep all the time, now says stuff about inflation that he probably knew all the time, but knew good enough not to say it. That continues to do that. And oh, by the way, I'm going to tell you that I'm furious that he didn't go to the Knicks game last night. I am. I mean, I've been rooting for the Spurs. Okay, showed up a couple of nights ago, and the Spurs win. They get a 29-point lead. They could have walked in to the to tie in this series at 2-2 if President would just went to that game. I
You
mean,
should
really.
call him. You should write him a letter. I saw some video that he slept through a lot of the game he went to.
Well, it was a very close game, so it probably wasn't exciting enough for him.
I don't really, have a dog in the fight on this one when we're talking about the teams, but Taylor Swift and Mariska Hargitay were sitting next to each other in the front row, and those are, like, kinda my girls, so I think I've gotta go Knicks on this.
Is that the deal? Well,
I mean, I'm a Swiftie.
you probably pick the team that's gonna win it because they're up 3-1 now. That means the Spurs gotta win 3 in a row. It's hard to imagine that they're gonna be able to do that, but I'm still gonna root for 'em.
Yeah, just checking on the comments here. Okay, so the birthright citizenship thing is just it's its own. We're awaiting this court decision. I don't pretend to know what the court's going to say on this. Um, but I do want to show another headline that came out because we have new reporting from Jacob Soboroff. Oops, that's not the right one.
That's a
Hold
previous
on.
I've seen that one before.
You've already seen that one. How about that one? Jacob Soboroff done with the Marshall Project, and it shows that since the start of the second Trump administration, ICE has detained more than 500 babies and toddlers. And we have seen so many complaints of horrific conditions inside these detention facilities. We've heard reports of sick kids. You remember little Liam Ramos from Minnesota with the blue bunny hat and the Spider-Man backpack. And when Representative Castro went down to see him, he was very ill. He was very lethargic. People talked about undercooked food, about worms in their food, and so many complaints of these horrific conditions and sick kids. And we're hearing now through this reporting by the excellent Jacob Soboroff that more than 500 babies and toddlers have been locked up.
So let me back up a little bit. When the president ran for office, he said he was going to lower costs. Inflation's at 4%. When the president ran for office, he says, I'm not going to get in any more of these wars. And we're in a war with Iran, Venezuela. He's talking about Cuba. Who knows? Greenland, Canada, who knows? And remember when he said, we're going to go after the criminals that are immigrants in our country?
The worst of the worst.
Worst of the worst. And what you don't know, Maritza, is these 500 little toddlers and babies, you know, who knows?
They
They
must be the worst of the worst.
must have been out there committing crimes or something. I don't know.
I mean, I know
He,
for people who are
if the supporters should know one thing, he says one thing and he never follows through or he does something exactly opposite. And so this should not be a surprise to anybody that we've got 500 toddlers that are among the worst of the worst. It's ridiculous, by the way, and everybody knows it, and everybody that has kids know it, and everybody that has empathy for anything knows it. Look at the pictures of those kids. I
that's what
mean,
I was
give me
saying.
a goddamn break. This is incredible.
Yeah, for people listening and you can't see, but there are some photos of some of these children who have been locked up, and they're babies. They should be being held and loved
Yep.
and laughing and playing and experiencing joy. And I think once you become a parent, at least for me, it really became hard for me to be in the news business and see or read or hear any news story that involved mistreatment of children because all I could see was my son's face and thinking about him in those conditions or in that position of whatever the story was. And that's all I can think about when I hear about these kids in these facilities, in these detention camps, and the mistreatment we're hearing about, and how scared they must be and the kind of trauma that will follow them likely for the rest of their lives if they don't get the proper help and healthcare and mental health care that will be needed when they come out of this. These are the kinds of things that can torment somebody. And it makes me sick. And I thank Jacob Soboroff for his continued work. He has not quit talking about children and the impacts of children from these policies from both the first Trump administration and now the second.
So I just want to add one thing to what you just said because it's spot on. But you remember a month and a half ago when the president had an image of himself as Jesus Christ himself uh, as a
Yeah.
doctor helping the sick. Um, these are 500 babies and toddlers. Where's the religious community?
Mm,
Where are they stepping up and saying, "Hey, this ain't right"? And there are some, by the way, out there that are working hard in that community, but this should be an all out. This is not proper and it's not tolerable. But just doesn't happen. You know, as some would say, they're concerned about them when they're in the womb, but they don't care about them when they come out.
yeah. Yeah. I think it's a great point. Where are the religious folks who are so pro-life right now with these kids? I mean, I have a picture of my son when he was about 2 on my desk, and I just can look at him and say, "Oh, like, I don't understand." Um, there were some other headlines I wanted to talk to you about, but I don't think we have time to get into it, but there was this whole New York Times exclusive about, like, the inside freak out from the White House over the Epstein files. Remember, that was another thing that he
There's another
promised.
promise. Another promise.
But let's not forget, he did release the Amelia Earhart files.
Yeah, didn't he? Didn't he release JFK information too? I think.
Something like that. Yeah, and the UFO stuff. I mean, listen, 7-year-old Maritza would be stoked to see all the Amelia Earhart files, let me tell you that. Like, I really loved that mystery when I was about 7 years old. There's also a headline that Barry Weiss may basically take control of CNN, once the Warner Brothers Paramount deal is final.
Surprise, surprise! And we can get rid of all sorts of good journalists for asking tough questions.
Yeah, so that's something that we are kind of tracking, but I wanted to show one last thing before we jump into our conversation with Maya Wiley, and that is this, Senator, look, it's almost complete. This is a photo of the massive arena in front of the White House constructed for this cage match, the UFC cage match that's supposed to take place this weekend for the president's 80th birthday. I mean, the photo is shocking, folks. If you're listening and you can't see it, you really need to go look at this. I mean, it's just a shocking image, and so reporters kind of, they're getting their first glimpses inside today, able to walk through it, and we're seeing all kinds of videos. But, I mean, this is a 92-foot canopy. It's known as the Claw, and, it can hold 4,000 people. There's a giant LED screen, and so this is all supposed to take place this weekend. There is a lawsuit trying to stop it, but I haven't it's still kind of in limbo, so we're just waiting to see. But, yeah, a lot of people are looking at this in disbelief.
So maybe we can get Springsteen to do a concert there next week. You think that's a possibility?
I think the president would be so
Yeah,
stoked.
yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty cool. What do you think of this? It looks kind of
I think it looks like a gutted out crab. I don't know what to think of it. I mean,
good.
it's, it's, there are venues for this. You don't need to have it on the front porch of the White House, especially when there's a war in Iran, especially when there's 4% inflation, especially when people can't go on vacations because the cost of energy is so high, especially when family farmers are going broke in record numbers since 1983. All this stuff, what are we doing here? Come on, we're living in a, we're, these guys are living in a different world,
What
and it's not real. It's not the real world.
I saw someone say that we are in like the bread and circuses stage of the US, and this is, the metaphor describing kind of like scraps that they're handing out to the people to distract from what's really happening. Um, and
I
this
can
is
take
certainly,
For those that can see that picture, that is certainly a distraction, I'll tell you that. It's
yeah, and he wants to keep it up full time. So there you go. Okay. Anything else before we get to our conversation with Maya Wiley?
I got nothing, but I haven't watched the news for the last hour, so, there might be something else that come up.
I know, there's always something else. I mean, I put the 2 True Social posts about Iran. I mean, that was just within hours of each other, but this morning when I was writing, it was he said they were gonna attack tonight, now he's pulling back, it could all change in about 20 minutes, so depending on when you listen to this, it could all be different, but, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Maya Wiley. It was a joy to have her on, and, we will watch for your feedback. Thanks, guys.
Tally ho.
Okay, so we want to welcome right now to Grounded Maya Wiley. She's the president and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, which is the country's oldest and longest civil rights coalition. Welcome, Maya.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to be with you.
It's great to have you here, this morning and, talking about an issue that, should be on everybody's radar for sure.
Well,
I mean,
I want to point something out before we jump into it because as I was prepping for this, um, I mean, I've long admired your commentary in this political space, but I did not know that your father was a civil rights activist and that he founded the National Welfare Rights Organization. But here's what's really interesting to me that I think we have to talk about because I just can't ignore the parallel is that he was on Richard Nixon's master list of political opponents.
He and the National Welfare Rights Organization is an organization. We used to joke in the family that he had let us down because he wasn't in the top 10.
I like that's a good joke, but I mean, when senator. We always talk about though, history rhymes, and we're in this moment and the parallels. But to think about having an opponent list compared to what we're seeing now, we'll get into it. But Senator, you want to kick us off here?
well, what you're saying is that, the Department of Justice, doesn't have a, opponents list or does have an opponents list, so history is repeating itself, quite frankly. This is, uh, this is pretty amazing. We think about Richard Nixon and you guys are much, much, much younger than me, but I remember when all the crap came down on him. What he did was child's play compared to what this president's doing. I mean, what he did with this Congress would never ever have risen to the point of you got to leave office because if you don't, you're going to be impeached. Um, I mean, it's like this administration is on steroids. In Congress, unlike the Congress in the 70s, um, are more concerned about political parties and more concerned about politics than they are about this country. It's a shame. Anyway, go ahead and go.
Okay. So Maya, one of the organizations that you work with the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, is the Southern Poverty Law Center. This has been a lot in the news a lot lately for the past few months, really. So this week on Capitol Hill, the House Judiciary Committee held a hearing specifically about the SPLC. And I want to just give a little bit of primer, but then dig into this with you. So let me know if I have this right. Um, did you say something, Senator?
No, I didn't. Go ahead and rock.
Oh, okay.
I
I
am
have, I have,
absolutely riveted. I'm riveted.
okay. Okay. Sorry. I have phantom voices in my head. Surprise, surprise. So here's the primer. The Justice Department actually filed an indictment against the SPLC in April on charges of fraud and money laundering. Now, the DOJ is accusing the SPLC of misleading donors by paying informants inside extreme organizations to collect information. Now, the SPLC says, hey, you've known about this. We've actually worked with the FBI and the DOJ for the center, and this is a broader retaliation campaign. Did I get all that right, Maya?
Yeah, you did. A lot more
Okay.
details we could get into underneath it.
Yeah.
Bottom line, I just want to add this one important fact about the hearing that we had yesterday, and I actually testified in the previous hearing a couple
Hmm.
of weeks ago that was a prelude to this hearing. Um, but there was a hearing in December attacking SPLC. In other words, we saw it coming, and we saw it coming because when you think about Project 2025 and the not-for-profit organizations, 100 not-for-profit organizations led by the Heritage Foundation, itself a not-for-profit organization, an advocacy group, think tank, that there were extremist organizations that were actually part of Project 2025. I don't say that lightly. Some of those organizations were on the very tracking lists that we talk about when we talk about groups like the SPLC, not only the SPLC, academic centers
Right.
that look at hate and extremism, look at where it is, how it grows, what's happening with it, so that we can better figure out how we prevent hate and extremism. Who doesn't agree with that, right? But this
Right.
coming because we saw nonprofit organizations that were deeply ideological, in some instances extremist, starting to create a drumbeat for this administration about who to go after. So the irony behind the hearing and the indictment, we can get into all of that. But in the very hearing, it was attacking the Southern Poverty Law Center for doing advocacy work and for working with the Biden administration. By the way, every administration prior to the current administration, regardless of political affiliation, as we all do as advocates to try to get the advocacy work done we care about, came from the very kinds of advocacy they were attacking the Southern Poverty Law Center for. And the reason that's such an important part of this story is because an important part of the story is mainstreaming groups that are not in the mainstream, and not only not in the mainstream, are actually can be promulgating racism, promulgating homophobia, promulgating all kinds of hatred and viewpoints that they're allowed to have and they're allowed to express, but for the express purpose of things like the Great Replacement theory, things that are neo-Nazi and white supremacist ideologies. And this whitewashing of that, I think, is the what we link back to when we think about the I'll call it an enemies list. I just want to be clear so we're not there is no formal enemies list that I know of. We just
Right.
hear both President Trump and others in his administration naming people and groups repeatedly that then become the subject of investigations, whether it's a Tish James or a James Comey or Fed Chairman Powell. I mean, powerful people who clearly are on the other side of him politically. But what we have to remember is it's not just about people in power. It comes for ordinary people. It's coming for ordinary people right now, and it's all the same thing. And it's an effort to essentially take away what is our multiracial democracy. And I think we have to make that very clear.
I just want to say one thing from my perspective, and my perspective isn't always right. But the people you just listed, and there's no doubt that list, and one much longer that the Department of Justice, through the direction of the president, have gone after, aren't necessarily different than him politically. I mean, I know Powell pretty well. I think he's a Republican. Honest to God, I mean, I do. But yet, the fact that he's not doing everything that the president wants him to do, every single thing the president wants him to do, then that's an enemy. And that's why we've got a cabinet full of a bunch of yes men and yes women that do nothing but kiss his ass every step of the way. In the Project 2025, just for my comment, you want to talk about fringe groups that wrote that, and they're adopting that chapter and verse, by the way, and
Which
that's
I'm
why,
past it.
yeah, that's why in rural America we're getting hammered by this administration, and it's the same people that vote for him, and will probably vote for him again, that are getting hammered in healthcare and ag policy. The list goes on and on and on, and so it is it is an all-out war against everybody that doesn't see the world exactly the same way that the President of the United States sees it. And by the way, I hope I never see this world the way the President of the United States sees it. I hope I never see it as a place where I can go to the courts and have that and do things like not pay my bills and get it relieved in a way over and over and over again. And by the way, that's just one of many. The fact that our reputation in the world has gone down, the fact that our reputation of, the United States of America, one country under God, everybody's treated in the same way, is out the window. It's just totally out the window. If you got money, take a look at the Epstein files, a prime example. If you got money, you're above the law.
Not to
Yeah,
mention very wealthy, corrupt people who stole millions and have
yeah,
gotten pardoned by this administration. So
absolutely.
you know, just there's a long
Well,
list for senator.
that's the thing. There are two sets of rules. You want to talk about fraud? They're pardoning people. This administration is pardoning people convicted of fraud and then going after the SPLC. And I think you said it really well in your testimony last month, Maya. You talked about um, that this is nonsensical. That the SPLC uses informants the same way our law enforcement agencies use informants. And you said today it's SPLC, but in a sense we are all SPLC. So I have to point out too that this hearing this week on Capitol Hill, they just grilled the SPLC chair and basically accused the center of funding hate groups instead of infiltrating and combating um, these groups. And they really hit hard on the right wing groups. And you just talked about it, normalizing the fringe. And so I can't help in this moment to think, okay, they don't want the SPLC to go after hate groups or these right wing groups. And at the same time, the president is trying to create a $1.776 billion fund that will benefit members of groups like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. I mean, that's not lost on me here.
It shouldn't be, and you're absolutely right to raise it because it's worse than a double standard. It's literally whitewashing white supremacy and extremism. And remember, and to your point, Senator, about this being also politics, I don't know whether Donald Trump or everyone in his administration agrees with these extremists. I don't know. And I don't think it's the point. I think they're willing to use them, whether they agree or disagree. They're willing to say, I will have more power if these people are my foot soldiers. And, we heard Donald Trump say that when he ran for president, and he told the Proud Boys, an extremist group, that the Southern Poverty Law Center, before Donald Trump was president, named as a gateway group to white supremacy. That was the groups that helped. These are groups that helped organize the Unite the Right rally, which were not good and bad people on both sides, by the way. But that Donald Trump, in a debate, said, basically stand by. Stand down, stand by. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
And then we have January 6th, 2021. And then we have pardoning violence, pardoning violent crimes. So all of this, and then it maps to the slush fund, the fund that says, "We'll pay you off." And in fact, it's another version of giving permission and empowering and suggesting that this is okay. But when these other people try to do basic advocacy or prevent violence from happening, it's not okay. And so you're completely right. I just want to underscore one of the things that happened yesterday. I mean, literally a member of this, just to talk about the bizarreness of this all. I mean, a member of Congress goes in the majority, goes after Brian Fairs, the interim president of Southern Poverty Law Center, who's a law professor, by the way, and an excellent one, who he basically goes after for funding informants. But the FBI actually has an informant program. And Congress appropriates the money for the FBI. So is Congress equally guilty of funding hate and of funding
Right.
drug cartels? Because they pay for
Right.
informants in order to try to identify, prevent, and arrest. And to your point, Brian went through a list, or tried to, and it required the minority to actually say, "Go ahead, give us your list." 2013, 2017, 2018, before the Unite the Right rally, just some of the publicly known um, places where Southern Poverty Law Center said, "Hey, law enforcement, we have this information. This is about to happen. There's a guy who's trying to get who who made his way into a Navy Yard job in a security position, who now has access, who is part of a white supremacist group." Hey, they give a 45-page dossier, events threats dossier, before Unite the Right, to the FBI. And remember that Top Blanche acted like he didn't know about it. So either he's incompetent or he's in league with lying to support a prosecution.
I don't know.
All I can say is he's demonstrated he should not be nominated and confirmed. It shouldn't be confirmed as
Right.
our next United States Attorney General. So the he- it is so far beyond hypocrisy. It really is whitewashing extremism to the detriment of ordinary people in this country who suffer what has become a historic rate of hate crimes. You can be Black, you can be Jewish, you can be Muslim or Arab, you can be Latino, you can be a woman, you can be
Yeah.
transgender, you can be whatever you are. But we should say this violence is real, it's happening to ordinary people, and this administration is giving it permission.
Yeah, I mean, but look, what's the main tool that the president uses to maintain his power? It's division. If he can get
Yeah.
people fighting with people,
That's right.
and it doesn't matter if it's within the Republican Party or within the Democratic Party or between the parties or between colors of skin or how you talk or whether you're an immigrant or not or what religion you go to, if he can get people fighting, it fits it fits his power structure, quite frankly. I mean, he has said it. I mean, he has said the division is part of what makes it click here.
And
And
it's the playbook. We've seen it in other countries. We're seeing it here
absolutely,
now.
absolutely.
So
I Go ahead, Marisa.
no, you go ahead. You go ahead, Senator.
I didn't see the hearing. What was the outcome? What was the how did the attorney that's the head of SPLC, was he successful? Did he get
I'm gonna
taken?
just say there were some wild moments, but go ahead, Maya. There were
Yeah,
some
I was
wild moments.
as you can tell, I can't play poker. I don't
Some clips, I was like, "Oh my gosh, what are they talking
No,
about?"
I mean, and I think the audience knows this as well. Sadly, these hearings can be political theater. So,
Yeah.
it's really it was political theater where you have a show being put on by Republicans and their witnesses to get their clips. I think Brian Fair and by the way, Margaret McCord, who many people know from her commentary about tyranny. Also testified. So, I would say that certainly both of them were poised, were clear, were principled and grounded. And where anyone comes out on what happened in that hearing is about whether or not you're, um, is whether or not you could listen for facts, because there was so much that was disturbing. I mean, it's disturbing that the hearing was happening at all, because remember, if the process is playing out, and as Brian Fair kept saying throughout the process, where they kept trying to ask him about things that are going to be part of a criminal process and be before a judge and a jury, potentially, if it's not dismissed. I think it very well may be. But if it's not dismissed, it's going to be adjudicated. But you're actually asking things he cannot respond to. Any lawyer will say, you can't answer that question because we're going to be litigating it.
Right.
It's so deeply unfair and wrong, and there's no need for oversight because the oversight is happening in a different way. But the part of it that was there was constant literal disinformation coming from the other side. I mean, it was there there was there were questions being asked by members of Congress that had no facts behind them, but they were being stated as if they were stating a fact. Um, uh, it's
Fancy,
hard to remember.
fancy, fancy that. Fancy
Yeah,
that. I mean,
Yeah.
let me tell you something, and this is a fact, and I never compared Democrats to Republicans, but the fact that, and by the way, on this podcast, I say things, Maritza corrects me all the time. I wanna get to the facts. But the truth is, it's said in a hearing or to post shit online that they know is not correct does nothing but add to the division.
yeah,
And that's part of the whole plan here. And keep going. I got something else I want to ask you about, but keep going. Keep going. Sorry.
yeah. No, I mean, no, that's right. So I would say, part of what we were saying, because some of these issues should be bipartisan issues, right? There should be deep
Right.
concern
Absolutely.
about
Absolutely. Yeah.
we literally had a news story about the Patriot Front doubling in size just over the last 2 years. The Patriot Front, which I think it's very hard for anyone to disagree with it being on Southern Poverty Law Center's extremist group list, because it has said things like Blacks and Latinos are intellectually inferior. It has literally been a very dangerous white supremacist organization. Lots of people saying it is, not just organizations and experts, not just Southern Poverty Law Center. It's doubled in size. And yet they are on the very kind of identification designation that SPLC does. But SPLC, part of what was happening is what SPLC does is so much more than what was discussed in that
Yeah.
hearing. And one of the things that was so important that happened, because I kept trying to focus on them being anti-Christian, not anti-extremism, because they're not.
Right.
Right, right. So there is this thing called white ethno-Christian nationalism that is extremist. It is not all Christians.
Right.
And what was one of the powerful moments that I thought was so important, because a lot of what the Democrats were doing was trying to just get the facts back out, because there were so many things being said, sadly, by Republicans that were not based in fact. That there was a video that they posted from a bunch of pastors. Um, and frankly, some pastors were white, some pastors were black. They were pastors. Can't say all the churches they were part of and all the denominations. They were Christian. And they all were saying, I don't know why we're hearing that Southern Poverty Law Center is anti Christian. Here's what they have done with my church and my community. They have helped us feed the hungry. They have helped us understand what's happening with food stamps. They have helped us
Right.
where hospitals in our communities may be in danger of closing. At Southern Poverty Law Center is actually, they brought people to the hearing, one, a mother and a young gentleman who is now a high school graduate who has autism, that they fought for to get the services so that he could graduate high school. They help children with disabilities all the time.
Right.
So I the the importance of trying to get the actual facts out about what SPLC is and what it does. I think there were some powerful moments in that, but it was so difficult in that theater to get the opportunity to unpack the disinformation. And I think
Like
There were efforts to do it, but when it comes to theater, as you both know, it's going to be about the clips and who sees them.
Yeah, we bring this up all the time, but the truth is that my predecessor in the United States Senate said one of the biggest problems we ever had is we started televising committee hearings and floor action. And at the time he said that, I didn't agree with him. But man, I'll tell you, every day that goes by, I agree with it because you got people in hearings and people on the floor that get up and say inflammatory things just so they can raise money to run for political office. That's
Oh,
the only reason. They
I
know
really think
that this is bullshit, but yet they get up in these hearings and they ask questions that are based on nothing but air, making it sound like this is factual and you can take it to the bank. And if you were in a court of law, the jury would find in your favor every time. And there's no evidence to show that this information is correct. But they do it because it appeals to a faction of people out there that'll write them checks.
Yeah.
And it's why we need to fix our campaign finance system in this country. The Supreme Court decision
Amen.
United.
Amen.
And it's a long list of bad decisions by the Supreme Court. Voting Rights Act's another one, by the way. But the truth is that they've made decisions, and says United, that have empowered this country to become controlled exclusively by the incredibly elite rich. And if we don't stop it, we won't have a country. And that's a fact. And it all starts with these stupid damn videos where people get up and say stupid damn shit.
and then they go in the congressional record. I really think my campaign slogan is "Make C-SPAN boring again." Like these hearings. Senator, I don't have the clip to play you. I kind of wish I did, but we don't need to amplify it. But the Republicans brought in Martin Luther King Jr.'s niece, who's pretty right wing, and she went off on a rant about the SPLC killing babies and cutting penises off, and it was a wild departure, wild departure
And
from
and
the topic.
and this is the point about disinformation. Um, it was actually picking up. And look, she said things I agree with. Let me be clear. She said,
Sure,
she said things about Christian. I come from the Christian tradition. Both my parents are
right,
Christian. My grandparents were fundamentalists. Hey, it's the point was she was conflating extremism as if all Christianity is one thing.
right,
And the disinformation was about whether parents can dictate the healthcare of their children, including parents who have children who are saying that they're transgender, none of which is about babies, none of which is about penises, none of it which is
right.
about what SPLC does. But in that very kind of set of exchanges, one member of Congress literally said one of the most Islamophobic things I had ever heard was like, he literally said something that was equivalent to, um, because Brian responded to exactly Maritza, the point that you're raising, and saying
Yeah.
SPLC doesn't take positions on religion, it's taking positions on organizations that are attacking the LGBT community's rights, which is what it's supposed to do. And it doesn't do that with regard to whether it's a religious group or not a religious group or what denomination it is. But the response from Representative Chip Roy was a laughing, sarcastic joke about, right, like Muslims and Sharia law don't discriminate about LGBTQ, which I thought, you just said all Muslims are
Right.
homophobic and transphobic, which is a stereotype that should disturb us because you can't paint any religion, whether it's Christianity or Islam or any group of people, with one brush. It's an example of the mainstreaming, but I'm also raising that because part of what we can't lose sight of is the Trump administration, now with someone himself very closely aligned to extremism, Sebastian Gorka, is
Mm.
responsible for naming and going after quote unquote domestic terrorists. And they have already really suggested they're going to go after Muslim and Arab American communities and LGBTQ because that very statement about killing babies and cutting off penises
Mhm.
is the disinformation that is fueling a claim that fighting for LGBTQ rights is domestic terrorism. That's the trope. That's the disinformation link to try to give permission from just going after basic civil rights and organizations that are supporting basic civil rights. So I'm saying that because when we're hearing these things in their hearing, it's actually playing out in people's lives, in the ability of organizations to advocate. And we're all SPLC because they are the way in which they're trying to legitimize and drive these kinds of criminalization attacks on basic civil rights advocacy and services to communities that are frankly being targeted.
And I just can't wait for them to hear about what's happening with circumcision. Sorry, Senator. Sorry, Senator. Maya, do you have a heart out right now, or do you have a few minutes?
I have a few minutes. I
Okay.
just, just Senator Tester, to your point about also the Voting Rights Act and what the Supreme Court is doing, there was one, I found it an emotional moment. So this is my opinion of the moment, but where Representative Stephen Cohen, who is a member of Congress, who represents the only majority Black district in the state of Tennessee, and was gerrymandered out of his, by the way, he's a white man that Black people voted for. So there's also a lot of lies about how Black,
Yeah.
about how these things play out. But Steve Cohen lost his seat. It was gerrymandered out to dilute the political voice of Black people in his district. And it could happen in so close to the election cycle because it was a gerrymandering to take power away from people of color. And he made he didn't reference that directly, but in talking about the way the Southern Poverty Law Center was important to his district and what he had seen them done historically and how he had worked with Julian Bond, who, of course, was one of the co-founders of the Southern Poverty Law Center. It was just a powerful moment and reminder that there's a long history here, but also there are very real consequences to the ability of all of us to have power, including who's sitting in those hearings, and therefore what they're raising, what they're asking, and how they're educating.
So, Maya, oh, go ahead, Senator.
By the way, that statement is an interesting statement because this Congress should always be a reflection of the people serving, should reflect the people who put them in office. We have come to the point now with gerrymandering where our elected officials determine who their constituents are. And it is not good for democracy. It's not good for freedom. It's not good for privacy. It's not good for anything other than, not to go back to the statement, where a certain class of people can control what's going on in this country. And it's not right. And it could be easily fixed, by the way. If Congress wanted to fix it, they could fix it today. Tomorrow, they could fix it today. But as with happens in politics in this country, they see it as an advantage to them. And today it is an advantage to them. Tomorrow it'll be an advantage to the Democrats. It needs to be fixed so it's an advantage for America. This is total insanity.
We will be working on fixing it.
Yeah,
So,
no kidding.
Maya, I do want to ask you, because if we zoom out and we talk about kind of just this broader coordinated attack from this administration, not only on nonprofits, but civil rights progress in general. Your organization actually tracks this, and I want to share this screen because, let's see, is it showing up there? Wait, where is it? Here we go. If I scroll through this, you have chronologically tracked all of the things that have been done. I mean, this is long. I'm only in January right now, and I can keep scrolling and keep scrolling and keep scrolling. And we talk about the courts, eliminating majority Black congressional districts in the South. We're talking about going after DEI programs to literally erasing history from the Smithsonian museums and other historical sites. So you have cataloged this and documented it, but you said we saw it coming. So I'm wondering, did you see it coming to this extent, or is this more extreme than you thought?
We saw it coming for sure. This extent, no. I think it's very difficult, and the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, just so your audience knows, is 76 years old. We were founded by Black and Jewish organizations to be the nation's voice on advocacy inside the Beltway. We do that and we do public education work on civil rights. We have more than 240 national civil rights organizations, including the Southern Poverty Law Center in our membership. So being born both of an, parents, and it was also my mother who loved to go to the Grand Tetons, by the way, Senator Tester.
Yes.
She grew up in Texas, so she liked the mountains. So, but parents who are actually active in the civil rights movement that, and now leading the Legacy Coalition that won many of these fights. Not all. We weren't where we wanted to be, for sure. And we saw we saw it coming in many, many ways, but certainly Project 2025 put it all on paper for us, right? We said, oh, wow, they're putting it on paper. We knew it was coming, but they're saying it out loud.
Yeah.
But so we were prepared for Project 2025, and they've so far surpassed, and aggressively so, even what they've laid out in Project 2020. For example, there are parts of Project 2025 where they say there should be no Department of Education.
Right.
But we understand that Congress has to pass laws because the Department of Education was created by Congress. Except, now none of that matters, right? I mean, so
Right.
even things we thought even our opponents saw as guardrails, they quickly realized, no, 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 no. We don't care what Congress has said or done. We're going to ignore that. We don't care how the president is supposed to direct the Department of Justice. We're going to ignore that. In fact, we're going to bring part of the Department of Justice into the White House. They've got a fraud czar in the White House who's supposed to be the justice. They've done things that we thought even Republican. This is my point. We thought there actually would be some bipartisan outcry. And the fact we have seen this complete collapse of what has been in our past, places where we are bipartisan, where we had agreement including with a good number of Republicans on some of these things that we now see permission for. So that I can't tell you how hard it is to be a person who was born at the feet of the civil rights movement, who thought, and I know my parents thought, that part of what we won could not be taken away, and we were wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
So remember what Liz Cheney said when President Trump got elected for the second time. He said, if our institutions hold, we'll be fine. They aren't. And the main reason they aren't is because Congress has become lapdogs for the president, the Republicans in Congress, I might add. And since they have majorities in both houses, we see what happens when it is premier rule from top down, because that's what Congress is allowed them to do. They forgot what Article 1 says, or maybe they never read it.
I don't know that they've forgotten.
So, Maya,
Then the people that I served with that believe in the Constitution ought to damn well live up to it.
And I think
Maya, we want to.
people leaving because they're willing, and we should also note this really is Republicans, but it's dangerous when people are getting pushed out of the Republican Party.
Yeah, I agree, but those same people who are leaving don't have the intestinal fortitude to do what's right even after they're leaving.
Maya, we want to leave on hopeful notes always and turn up a path forward. So my question to you is, what's giving you hope right now? And what can people do? People always want tangible things that they can do. So what can people do right now in this moment?
Well, I'll start with an easy, obvious one. Go to civilrights.org and sign up and participate. We will tell you when and how you can respond to calls to action. We will tell you and amplify where there are opportunities to engage, and where and how you can support. But here's the thing. What gives me hope is people are already engaging. I mean, I sat in that hearing room yesterday. We had several of the leaders of our member organizations, Common Cause, LULAC. We were a diverse group of folks who are willing to be seen and to sit and be present in that room, which matters, but it's also what's behind it, right? As I said, we've got over 240 national organizations, all of who are not being. We are refusing to be silent, and we're refusing to step back from doing our work, despite the fact that they're trying to put the Southern Poverty Law Center's head on a stake to try to keep us from doing that. And we're seeing that mobilization and organizing. After Black communities and leaders came together after the Supreme Court's decimation of the Voting Rights Act. We have 5,000 people just in Montgomery within 6 days of that. We're seeing
Yeah.
people asking for where and how they can get involved. So the short answer is we're doing supporting mobilizations through Juneteenth, which is coming up next week, June 19th. We'll
Mhm.
we'll have places where people can see where they can show up. But this is the point. Voting matters. Making sure that your neighbors know how to vote matters. Making sure you're showing up both at your state house and in your local government to say you can't ban those books. You actually we don't like how you're gerrymandering, and we're
Mhm.
making news about it as citizens, as residents. So signing up and joining any organization or effort matters, but I have hope because so many people are, and so many people are asking the very question you're asking, Maritza, and we're here to help. We're here to help connect you. So all I can say is it is only redoubling the commitment, and as I say, we have a byline that we use in the coalition, which is we are the majority. We are the majority of this country. We look like this country. We're as diverse as this country. We don't agree with each other on everything, and that's not the point. It's not about
Right.
agreement, but it is the fact that the majority of this country does have the principles that we share, knows this is wrong, and doesn't like it, and is gonna voice that, and that's incredibly important.
Amen, sister. That's a fact. It's really important. People's voices need
Uh,
to be loud and heard.
all right. Well, Maya Wiley, President and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for all you do.
You bet.
Okay, such a great conversation. So many things I didn't get to, of course. But one of the things I wanted to ask about is that, right now they're going after organizations like the SPLC, with this indictment in Congress. But even if that's all thrown out, there are other avenues that can be used. Like the IRS could revoke a nonprofit's tax exempt status. There are other avenues they can use to punish these organizations, and I think that's what's hard to understand and concerning is to see just like this backward slide we're in.
Yeah, and the real question is why are we punishing organizations that are fighting for regular people that oftentimes don't have the ability to fight for themselves? And I would just say that it's about disinformation.
Mm,
All feeds back together. It's about Barry Whiteheir and Scott Pelley. It's about the president talking about stuff that going to a Knicks game in the middle of a war in Iran when the next night he's bombing Iran.
yeah.
It's about misplaced priorities. It's about all sorts of things that this administration has been doing that goes counter, by the way, to America the Beautiful.
And let me point out that the SPLC is not just an organization that fights for, advocates for communities of color. I mean, this is an organization that fights anti-Semitism. This is an organization that fights Islamophobia. This is an organization that fights for injustice against any group
Yeah,
anywhere. I mean,
yeah, that's right. I mean, that's true. And but if you can paint them with a brush of who they aren't, similar to what happens in politics, if you can make people think that they're not doing what they say they're doing and paint them with a brush, make them into something they're not, then you can go after them and punish them for shit they didn't do. You know, and that happens in politics all the time, by the way. And now it's
yeah.
happening nonprofits because of the weaponization of the Department of Justice.
Yeah, it's quite something. Yeah, the division is here, and it seems to grow, and I'm seeing it growing in all kinds of places, Senator.
Yeah, I talked about it before. We're seeing it. We're seeing it in Capitol Hill, but the truth is that that's a reflection of what's going on in the country in general, and it's too bad. People would rather bitch than work to make things better. I shouldn't say people. Some people would rather than work to make things better. Um, some people will bitch and go counter to their own interests And I've never been able to figure out why that's the case, but it's the way it is. And you know what? If some of those people are listening to this podcast, they know exactly who they are.
Ooh, coded. Get your decoder rings out, friends. Um, okay, so I want to say really quickly, my son is graduating from 8th grade. So
Oh
I
my
want to say
God.
congratulations to him because he's moving on to high school.
You are so old. It's unbelievable.
I know. I have a
Yeah.
high schooler. That's
Another
crazy.
here's the scary part. In another 4 years, you're gonna be paying for college, assuming we still have institutions of higher learning, okay?
Oh
Because
man,
they're a big threat to some people in our government.
I better go get a real job.
Yeah.
I gotta come work on the farm.
Just ain't gonna cut it.
Oh no. Oh no. Okay, well we want to say yes, congratulations to my son. Congratulations to all of the grads everywhere, whether you're going from 8th grade to high school or high school on or graduating from college. Congrats.
Is this the last week of school for him? Then
Yeah, we're
it's
done.
fishing for the next 2.5, 3 months and
Yeah, he's
riding
gonna be
that
fishing.
riding that electric bike that's a
I
power
need
only
to I actually need I have this little thing here, I'll show you. My son loves to fish, and so he went down to fly shop here in Missoula because he knows that Rachel Maddow loves to fish, and I have been meaning to send her a thank you gift. Gosh, it's only June, she was on in February, but, it's the thought that counts. And he picked
never
out all of these little flies to send her.
no present. So you let me see those flies. Let me see it. What is it? What's the name of it? Did he
We
tell
have
you
a
what it was?
Come on. I don't know, I have this guy,
It
I
looks like
have
a
a
bug.
couple. Yeah, they look like
What do they call
imagine that.
I think that's what they call them, flies,
I
yeah.
think that's why they call 'em flies. So, Rachel, if you're listening, you have some fun presents coming. All right, we wanna thank everybody for joining us. We wanna thank our guest, Maya Wiley, the incredible Maya Wiley, for all that she does, in this arena. We wanna thank Pearl Jam for letting us use their music. We wanna thank all of you who continue to tune in and hear us just drone on and on and on about the news of the day, and I think that's it. Oh,
Gotta
no, it's
uh,
not. What's your
gotta
hat say?
be able to read this. Can you read it?
Gallatin Valley Land Trust, Trails and
Yeah.
Conservation.
They do a great job in conservation, I'll just tell you that, down in Gallatin, but their influence is much wider than that, so it's good folks.
All right, well, there you have it, folks. We have a hat today, a new hat, and, I hope that you have a great rest of your day, and we'll chat again soon.
Hally-ho.